This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 323 for Wednesday, June 26th, 2019. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Joining me this afternoon, Megan Townsend is back. You can find her at Megan Townsend on all the social media that matters. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm busy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you know what? I was thinking the other day, I was like, man, I haven't talked to Joel in a long time. And the last time I was supposed to be on, I couldn't be on, which I really apologize for. But it's been a bit since I've talked to you or seen you or anything.
Yeah, it has been. And I'm busy of my own accord. It's not like I'm busy out of control. I could be less busy if I want to be. Podcasting is going well. I've been hitting most of the weeks with the Citadel Cafe. And there's been a lot going on with the Spawn Chunks because of all the new snapshots and the news that's coming out. E3 of course happened, and so there was a lot of news centered around that with Minecraft, because there's like two more games to follow now. There's Minecraft Earth and then Minecraft Dungeons, which are separate from Minecraft, so that got very busy.
Okay, interesting.
So I'm not going to talk about weather specifically because that's against the rules, but I have been out for a run every day a week, pretty much. Like Monday to Friday I've been out. 5 out of 7 days I've been out running, which is fantastic, but it turns my short lunch break into about 2-hour lunch break, because you get to work out, shower, and then eat and stuff like that. So by the time I get back to work, it's a little bit later than normal. I'm enjoying it, but now I'm working until 7 o'clock at night because of course I've got a longer lunch, and then I eat and I clean up after dinner, and it's like 9:30, and I'm not going back to work after dinner. So I've discovered why I'm not getting more done on some of the things that are not necessarily part of my work day, but things like, editing videos, doing podcast notes, like stuff like that. I've been behind on, and it's because I'm not going back into the studio after dinner, which is probably a healthy thing, but it's also just like, I used to accomplish so much more. And it's like, well, that's because you're not working until 11 o'clock.
Right. I feel like also having more day too, like now that we actually have, longer evenings, and it's still kind of light out at 9 o'clock at night. It's still, well, and I don't know, it's nice. Like I feels like you can justify being up a little bit later, but
yeah, no, absolutely. Or at least being outside or being away from techie stuff. Like I am way more inclined to sit on my balcony and enjoy either dinner, a drink, or dessert with a podcast than I am to be sitting inside in front of the computer or in front of the TV watching Netflix. And
I wish I had a balcony. That's like the one thing that I want is a balcony.
I grill so much that I can't live in a place without one. So for apartments, as far as they go, even like a shared apartment space, like a rooftop patio with a barbecue, I wouldn't like. I want my own. I need that outside space. My place gets so warm that I need to be able to at least sit outside, and I find for me like it's much cooler outside than it is in my apartment at, let's say, like 7 or 8 p.m. Just because of the way that the building warms up and releases the heat and all that kind of stuff. So I've been really enjoying just sitting out in the backyard and just watching the trees. Really, it sounds silly, but I have a podcast going, but I have had, someone that lives by myself, I have the bad habit of like making dinner and then plopping down in front of Netflix or YouTube or whatever and just kind of like watching something while I'm eating. And I've been really enjoying the less the lower screen time and just throwing a podcast on my iPhone on speaker and just like leaving the phone on the table out on the balcony and eating outside. And I eat outside as long as it's not raining or cold, then I'll eat outside, because it's such a nice experience. And I had I think I was out on the patio, like a restaurant patio, for the first time like a couple of weeks ago. Took my mom out to dinner, and like,
really?
It was one of those things where it's just like, it was the first time, because it had been such a long, wet spring around here that patios really hadn't gotten going, right?
Yeah,
So
we didn't have a spring. It was just like,
rain.
it's kind of rainy. It's still kind of like, getting out of winter. Whoa, hey, it's summer now, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like global warming is real, man, because like rain didn't happen until like May, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
supposed to usually come around in April.
I've
And
been
then
trying
like,
to keep up. I mean, like I like to think of myself as an environmental a green person. Like I do my best
yeah,
to recycle and compost and do all the things that I can that are within my control from an apartment. There's not a whole lot you can
yeah,
do.
it's true. Yeah,
But I've been with a federal election coming up, and we won't get into politics because I try to steer away from that on this show.
yeah,
But I have been just keeping abreast of issues and what different parties are approaching as far as environmental law and stuff is concerned. And Canada, I think I did mention it. I might have mentioned it last week with Brockett as just kind of like a side note, kind of like a joke. But Canada approved an oil pipeline and declared a climate emergency on the same day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
I won't get into it
it's not
because
as
I'll
it's
get
not
really
as black and
angry,
white. It's
but
not as black and white as that. I've done enough digging to realize that I know it's not it's not black and white. But one in some of the research that I've been finding, in terms of like you're talking about global warming, this is why I brought this up. I read an article on CBC the other day about the permafrost in the Arctic melting. And
yeah,
there's a photo of like a hiker or a journalist next to like a sinkhole because like the ground that surrounds certain areas is part ice, part dirt. And when
right.
the ice is melting, it just turns to mud or giant holes open up underneath what would be the surface and things start to cave in because
Yeah.
it never got warm enough to actually thaw. And now that it is, it's becoming a big problem. I can't remember the name of the community, but there's a community in Yukon where they're isolated on one side of a river and they can't cross it because the river's melted, which it has never done before. So normally it's just a permanent ice bridge across this river. That's how they access,
Right.
and so they can't do that. And they've never built a bridge because they've never had to. So
Right.
there's some things like that that are changing rapidly that you don't necessarily hear about so much in the South. Usually in southern urban areas, it's mostly about air pollution and
Mm.
emissions and trying to reduce like it's all about electric cars and stuff like that. Whereas people
Yeah.
in more, especially in a country as large as Canada, in rural areas, you're talking about like being cut off from access to everything because the road is washed away, or
Yeah.
the big larger issues that are happening. And it as much as we all try to do our little part, I feel like right now there's just so much in the hands of big government.
Yeah, big governments, big corporations. I
Yeah.
mean, like I like anxiety. Like, I have so much anxiety about like the environment and like how it's impacting everything. Like I actually
Mm.
like have been woken up from like nightmares about it. Like
Oh
it's
wow.
it's like I think about it so much. I don't like for someone who's not in like sustainability or like as a profession or anything. I think about environment stuff way too much and like I saw this like dark joke online. It's like, oh, you're worried about not being able to pay your student loans? Don't worry about it. We're all gonna be dead in 20 years, so just spend that money you would do on a vacation while you're alive, and then it's all fine. So I was just like, man, may as well just live now, YOLO, because literally it's like we're not gonna
Yeah.
be here in 20 years. But like I found like so like someone I follow on Tumblr was just very kindly putting out this like post and they're just like for anyone who's anxious about like the environment and pollution, like here's some good things. So like I know London they planted like a 7 mile bee habitat or something. There's Maine has banned styrofoam. um there's just all these like people are like cities and countries are doing like these small little things to try and help the environment, and like the ozone layer is repairing itself a little bit more every single day. And even China is kind of now like trying to work on stuff to clean up their air. I don't know if cities like Beijing, who I think is like the major contributor of terrible greenhouse gas emissions, that city is smoggy
Well,
as
and
all
that's the
hell. But
thing, like it's the article that I read, and I'll try to find it for the show notes. But the article was just like, everybody here is like, let's ban plastic bags. It's like Canada, you know, contributes like something stupid like 3% or 5% of world like plastic pollution. Canada's not the
yeah,
problem, like you have
yeah,
to get plastic bags behind or banned in like China or like massive countries that don't have that kind of
Like the amount of packaging that's in stuff, like making
Yeah,
more sustainable packaging.
all that
And
kind of thing.
then, yeah, and then on that, like a lot of people are like, everyone should go vegan. It's like, well, vegan is a buzzword now for a lot of companies.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm not knocking veganism at all. Actually, this is like a something I wanted to actually really research a lot more. But the whole idea behind veganism originally came about to be like environmentally sustainable and environmentally helpful. Like it helps the environment. It kind of the idea was to reduce greenhouse gas emissions that come from
Oh,
like
like,
meat factories
oh
and
yeah,
things like that. Like
absolutely.
the overpopulation of cows that cause a lot of methane gas in the air and things like that. But now that vegan has become such a buzzword, it's like, oh, we're all using all vegan products now. Like we're like, the shoe store,
Mm.
one of the shoe stores in the mall that I work at is they're saying we're 100% vegan now. That's great, but what is your stuff made out of? Most likely plastic because that's
Mm-hmm.
vegan. So
Yeah.
the greenhouse gas emissions that came out of making those products, and also how are they going to be recycled or dealt with afterwards? Like, is that environmentally ethical? So before the buzzword was like natural, now then it became organic, and now it's vegan. And
Mm.
it's like, what's the next buzzword going to be for like products? And I feel like it's going to become sustainable. Is that going to be the next buzzword? Is sustainable,
Yeah.
but they
Well,
actually have to. I think you have to prove that it
if
is
you can, yeah,
sustainable.
if you can prove it, sure, and that's,
Yeah.
and then one of the things that, on a positive note, I think it might have been something on Facebook where, like, no, it doesn't really matter in terms of the actual impact that Canada is looking at, or communities in Canada are looking at banning plastic bags. However, as a world leader, setting that example means that more and more smaller countries that might do it, it has that trickle down effect of, like, you got to lead by
Yeah.
example. Even if you're only affecting 3% or 5% of that pollution, it's
Yeah.
still a chunk. And if you can convince other people, or put the pressure on other environmental, or other governments to kind of follow suit. I think the problem is that some of the larger countries in the world don't have the same kind of democracy where the people can put the pressure, on the government to do
Yeah.
that, right? And so
Yeah.
it's an interesting kind of situation globally. But I'm seeing more and more news from England, France, Canada,
Yeah.
the U.S.
You
sort
like
of.
Europe, I feel like the
Mm,
Europe and the Commonwealth are all very
hmm
dedicated to it, which is nice. And China does sound like it's making a lot of waves. Like they think they were fully scrapping an original like idea they had to build something or like to clean up their air, and then like they were like, okay, maybe that's not environmentally friendly. Let's
mm.
come up with a whole other idea. So like things are changing, I think, in a positive direction. But I think my fear is it's like, will it change in time?
Fast
Is the
enough. Yeah,
thing.
that's
Like,
that's
will
the
it change
thing.
in time?
That's the
The rate
thing.
at which our planet is heating up versus the rate at which people are actually doing something about it, I don't think is relative. I think that planet's heating up faster than we're actually managing to catch up with fixing the problem.
Yes, yeah, and I'm struggling
And
to
I
remember
think
the
that's
name of
where I'm
the.
having a lot of anxiety about it.
Yeah, there's a BBC series that we covered on the show not too long ago. It was this year sometime, somewhere's in the winter time. I want to say January or February. I was talking about it. It's a David Attenborough, production,
Mm.
and I'm just struggling on the name. I'm trying to look it up on our website right now, but it's one of those things where, um, oh, Our Planet, the Netflix original Our
Oh,
Planet,
yes.
that one. Uh, Really good information in terms of, like, this is where we're going, this is how dire it is. But a lot of the time, each episode would end with like and here's a positive thing. Like, here's an example where fisheries in the Philippines said no more shark fishing in this area, and lo and behold, 10 years later, the entire area is completely rehabilitated. Like, it does not take that long to
Yeah.
make the right choices. The problem is that there's usually greedy, people in power that those choices don't benefit, so then they don't get done.
Yeah.
And this is something I don't want to get too far into because I haven't done enough research to really cite proper examples and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I feel like there are some positive examples, but like, even for me, pardon me, I looked into some solar alternatives for apartment people. Like, how can you, for something as simple as, like, well, I have a number of mobile devices that I need to plug in and charge, and it would probably the things that I use the most would very easily be able to be charged by a solar panel if I hung it in my window.
Yeah.
The problem is finding, one, something small enough, and two, something that's not cost prohibitive. Now, I can appreciate that in the long run I might be saving money and probably using less power and contributing to the lower power consumption on the grid here in the city. But I don't want to spend $400 on a solar panel. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
and even the small designer ones, like, oh, here's this cool thing I saw on Kijiji. It's still $200 American just because someone now has designed it and it looks
yeah.
pretty. And now I'm paying them. Granted, they're a good designer, but it's still like, yeah, but this I need something functional. I don't necessarily need it to be super
Fancy.
fashionable. And I
Yeah.
find that as someone that has done like a grassroots, Kickstarter, publishing thing, you can't have mass production and super super low consumer prices because you're a mom and pop shop. Like
Yeah.
this thing that's probably being machined and made in New York City, of course it costs $200 because all of the people along that pipeline have to get paid. But there just
Yeah.
needs to be more accessibility to the average person that has like the average mean to lower than mean income and have
Mm-hmm.
solar alternatives and those kind of things be available to them.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
if you can do that, then I think a lot of people are just like, oh, wait a minute. So if I spend $100 or less, on this solar panel thing for my, that'll I can sit in my window and then I can use it to charge. Like, say if it's like a family, like you've got your kids' cell phones, you got your cell phone, you got your spouse's cell phone, and all that kind of stuff is just no longer being plugged into the wall. Then like you will more than likely see at least a noticeable drop in, say, your power bill, especially if you can hook it up to something that is like a television. The problem is that larger appliances and larger things, they need like a converter. Like you have to turn solar
Yeah.
energy into electricity. You can't it's not just a simple plug and play, like a
Yeah.
USB, into a computer. In a way, we're kind of spoiled with personal electronics into how quote unquote simple it is to just plug it in and use it. But the problem is that all of the conversion is happening outside of your house. So like somewhere's either it's, coal power, hydropower, solar, wind, whatever, it's all being
Mm-hmm.
converted into the electricity that's being brought into your house. So if you are collecting the energy yourself, the conversion thing is problematic. There's fire
Yeah.
hazards. Like it's not a small box. It's not it becomes a large ordeal. And I looked at some people like, engineering students and stuff that had done it in their apartments and people in, overseas that had done it, to get electricity into, remote areas and things like that. But it's not a small undertaking. Like, I mean, you can't do it if you don't own the space, right? Like it becomes
Yeah.
very difficult when you're just renting.
Yeah.
But it's
No,
an
I agree.
interesting, I guess, field or hobby. I'm not sure what you want to look into it, but like looking it up on Pinterest, like, personal solar panels and stuff like that. It actually is a pretty fun rabbit hole to go down in the internet. I mean,
Yeah.
you quickly
Yeah, for
realize that
sure.
it's not accessible to you, but you might learn a few things and you're just like, okay, well, that's neat. It's not something I can do, but the having the possibilities are, out there. I would think more
Mm.
small businesses or people that own apartment buildings, could do stuff like that. That could, then
Yeah.
make those apartments more attractive to people. But it's not really at the lowest consumer level, I
I
don't think.
agree. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. If you want everyone on board with it, you got to
Mm-hmm.
get people on board. And like on the in the realm of like, sustainability and banning single-use plastics and stuff, like I'm glad that that's being something that's talked about. Again, like you were saying, we only make up like Canada only makes up 3%
Mm-hmm.
of the world's plastic intake. A lot of people are now starting to be like, okay, well, how is this going to affect people with disabilities though? Um, because a lot of the time straws were created for people who can't lift a glass,
Right.
right? It was meant to be an easy thing to like slurp out of, to actually have a drink if you're, so someone doesn't always have to keep lifting a glass to your mouth. And in some cases, like, some people are allergic to metal, so the metal ones and the steel ones don't quite work. They're difficult to clean. The glass ones are a little easier to clean because you see in them, you can see through them. Sorry, but they're more prone to breakage, which is more, prone to injury.
Mm-hmm.
Paper ones, while biodegradable, may have some sort of adhesive in them that someone may have an allergic reaction to. The only thing that is like foolproof, easy to use for a lot of people is a single use plastic straw. But how, like, but then you get into this realm of like, okay, well, who actually needs a straw? Maybe people don't look super disabled. Like I know people who have EHL, Ehlers, no, or EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or something. They have, it's like a musculature joint degenerative disease.
Mm-hmm.
They don't always look physically disabled, but like their body is basically deteriorating from the inside out. But they, maybe having a better day, so they don't need to walk around with a cane. Can someone police, oh, you don't look disabled enough, so you don't need a straw? Like that's, becoming stuff that people are trying to think about in other realms as well. So it's we need to find something that works for everybody. But it's difficult. Like I don't think there's going to be one foolproof thing that works for everyone.
No, and I
which
mean,
is a problem. And like, I don't want to make it super like ableist only, because there are some people like, I feel like a lot of people with disabilities lose out on a lot of stuff as it is anyway.
Yeah,
so
I did a quick Google search, and it looks like Canada only recycles 11% of its plastic waste. I was trying to find the stat for like how much plastic pollution does Canada contribute to the world, just because I'm curious about my range from my memory on that article, whether I'm getting it right or not. But I mean, I'm sure people can find it, quickly enough. It was a CBC article, and again, I'll try to find. I should have all of them in my inbox. I get a newsletter every day, just like the headlines and stuff from CBC. But yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. I mean, I agree that straws are bad and litter is bad, but I don't know that focusing on plastic straws is really the answer. Like
I don't know. Like that one video with the turtle is pulling the straw out of its nose. Yes, that's a bad thing. That's a bad thing that humans have contributed.
But how often does that happen, right? I mean,
I feel like more often than you'd think, honestly. But
yeah, but
still,
compared to plastic bags and and all that other kind of stuff.
Cutting open whales who have like 10 pounds of plastic bags in them, and there's like a plastic island somewhere in the Pacific that's like the size of Texas. Like, it's a problem.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. No, and that's where I think, you focus on. Well, it's just like any other problem. I mean, and this is just my opinion because I'm not a scientist, and I've not done extensive research, but focus on the things that are causing the most damage and are causing the climate to change the fastest. Like, prioritize. Are plastic drinking straws a problem? Yes. Are they the biggest problem? No. So maybe focus on things like, I don't know, coal power and, like stuff that's really like stuff like the permafrost melting. Like, I mean, obviously that's a symptom, not a cause. But like focus on the things that are really contributing to, the warming of the planet and that kind of stuff. And I think that if you attack the larger things first, then then it'll be at least doable. But the problem is that the largest things are usually tied to the largest industries, which are tied to a lot of money, and and we go down that rabbit hole. So, but anyway,
it's like Walmart's whole like 5 cents per bag. It's like, no, you're still making bags though.
You're
still making those bags. Like, maybe stop making the bags if you want.
I remember.
To be environmentally conscious.
And this has been true ever since I was a kid. I remember vacationing on Prince Edward Island here in the Maritimes. They've always had different laws. I feel like plastic bags might be banned now on PEI. If you're a listener in PEI, let me know. But I know for sure that you could not get tin cans, because whenever we got a Coke, you're out with your family and you're going for, you want to get a pop at the corner store. It's in a bottle because the glass bottles were easier to recycle. And so they, the Coke and all the different software companies, they couldn't sell cans anywhere on the island because of pollution and recycling and all that kind of stuff. It was easier to recycle the glass. So it's stuff like that, and that's been in place for a long, long time, but out of necessity because it's an island, and there was, when I was a kid, there was no bridge; it was a ferry, so it was a pain in the butt to ship stuff off the island to be recycled or disposed of. So like you had to come up with, solutions that worked for the province. And I have to say though, I've been hiking around the province quite a bit in the last year or two, and I'm doing more this summer. I always pick up trash when I go if I see it, but it's not something that I see a lot of.
I see it more in the city.
Oh, in the city, sure, but that's because city people are disgusting. But like, not that it's any better. Like you should still not. It's worse because there's garbage cans on every bloody street corner. But I very seldom, have that moment where I have to go like, ugh. I roll my eyes and I be the curmudgeon and, get off my lawn and then pick up someone else's trash on a hike. I never see trash on a hike. usually the people that are out there they pick up after themselves, or they're picking up after other people. So like there's just that mentality among usually that crowd is just like, keep the trail as you found it. And so I've really not had any issues that I've seen. The only time that I feel like I have seen any kind of trash, it's been along a beachfront that's part of the hike. And that's probably not because it was left there. It's probably washed ashore there from, whatever source it came from, whether someone tossed it over the side of the boat, whether it got, picked up somewhere else or whatever. It could be from anywhere, really. So yeah. Anyway, we should probably get into some of the meat of the show.
So some happier stuff.
Some happier stuff. I say happier stuff. What have you been watching, Megan?
Well, do you want me to start?
Yes.
We're going to jump off of that? Okay. I've been watching Good Omens, which I think is kind of appropriate because we were just talking about the potential end of the world, and this is kind of what Good Omens is about. But it's happy. It's the happy end of the world. I'll get into it in a second. So yeah, Good Omens. I started watching this. I honestly had no choice but to watch it because my roommate was like, "We're watching this. Deal with it. Sit down. Get yourself ready." Good Omens is it was a book originally by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and Bethany loves Neil Pratchett, and I've read a lot of Neil Gaiman, so like it's kind of a best of both worlds sort of thing. Oh my god, I can't talk today. And it's really interesting. It's about this demon named Crowley, who's played by David Tennant, and this angel named Aziraphale, played by Michael Sheen, and they're just like basically responsible for watching the earth. Like the good side, who'd be the angels, are responsible for making things good, and like watching it and making sure people are happy, and they're following a good path according to like the great plan, the omnipotent plan that God has. And then the demon side, like the dark side, are responsible for creating corruption and discourse among the people. So they kind of balance each other out. And basically, both of them just get to the point where they're just so happy just living on Earth that they're just like, you know what? I just don't want to really do anything. They just kind of get really comfy in their ways. Like Aziraphale owns a little bookshop. He's obsessed with books, and he just wants to, eat food and drink tea and be happy and, live like a little curmudgeonly old man in a bookshop. Right? Like that. He's like creature comforts, which is really funny because he's meant to be an angel who's very selfless and all, self-sacrificing. And he's like, I just want to hoard all my books. I want to eat all my food. I'm going to drink all my wine, have all my tea or my hot cocoa, and just enjoy my life, which seems like kind of opposite for an angel. And then Crowley, who's meant to be a demon, he's just like, I kind of just like people too much, and I don't really want to screw around with them. And they end up becoming really good friends. Like they live in London, and they're like best friends from opposite sides. They just hang out together all the time. Like they just kind of kept running into each other from all these different centuries. And so Aziraphale was the angel who was guarding the gate of Eden, and he was he was issued this flaming sword to protect the gate of Eden, and he ended up giving it to Adam when Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden to go venture out into the world. And he was like, she's expecting, and it's dangerous out there, and like there's a bunch of creatures, and they needed to protect themselves. I was doing it for them. And there's this ongoing joke of like, it'd be funny if like, and then Crowley was like the snake responsible for getting Eve to eat the apple in the first place. And like their banter was, or Crowley said, it would be funny if I did the right thing and you did the wrong thing. Like I did the right thing by making them eat the apple, but you did the wrong thing by giving them the flaming sword. And that ends up becoming like a key, point in the show. I love the show. I've never read the book myself, but Bethany, who's read it cover to cover at least 15 times, has said that like out of like any book adaptation for something, it is the most faithful and most accurate and best depiction of a book being turned into something that she's ever seen. It does change some stuff. There are some things that are added. What's his name? Mike Hamm? Oh God. I'm forgetting his name. John Hamm, that's who it is. He plays the angel Gabriel. Gabriel's not in the book at all. Right. But Neil Gaiman specifically asked John Hamm to be part of the show, and John Hamm originally said no because he's like, I don't want to screw anything up, because he loved the book. And then I guess Neil Gaiman was like, well, how about we make you the angel Gabriel? He's not in the book. And John Hamm was like, yes, please, I'd like that very much. and then just kind of jumped. Like a lot of people loved the book so much that they were afraid to do the show until
wow.
Neil Gaiman like specifically was just like, no, I want you to do this. Here's why. So Neil Gaiman had like a lot of hand in the show itself. Like he helped adapt it for the screen. He was there in production almost throughout the entire thing, and was really really proud of it. And he was making a lot of the executive decisions in place of Terry Pratchett as well, who had passed away a couple of years ago. And he has said, he's like, I think Terry would really love this. It is amazingly perfect. It's got a really really nice dry sense of humor, like that. Really, it's very typical British humor, which I love. It's my favorite.
Yeah, me too.
There's so many gags that happen, but they don't like hit you over the head with them. It's like a one-time gag, and that's it. Like, it's great. I almost thought I watched it twice, like the whole series twice. It was funnier the second time I watched through it because I noticed more. Like I was able to pick up more. I'm like, oh, that's what they were talking about that time. That's really funny, actually. And it's I really like it. It's really good. If you can watch it, do you have Amazon Prime, Joel?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Have you signed up for a free trial yet?
This
sounds like an ad. It's not. I swear to God.
No, it's not. It's a really good question. Chances are I probably have, but it's been around for so long I don't remember if and when I did that. The problem with Amazon Prime for me is that I don't buy enough on Amazon to warrant the free shipping. And I have to say that it's not so much now, but previously my entertainment budget was pretty slim. So Netflix was kind of like what I had and what I was watching. And since Game of Thrones is over, I've canceled Crave and HBO. So so that's $20 a month that I was spending. That's no longer being spent. But I could look into Amazon Prime because I'm hearing great things, obviously from you, from other people on our Discord about Good Omens. And, and I obviously. I've seen other films and other projects that Neil Gaiman has been involved in, and I've not read any of his books, I'm embarrassed to say, but I know he's very well regarded, and I mean,
yes, yeah,
I would think that anything that he has been this involved in, if it's your taste, like if it's your kind of show, it's probably a good kind of show, and it sounds like it's right up my alley.
Really good. It's, oh my God, it would be. Like the whole time I was watching, I'm like, Joel would love this. Joel would love this because and like there was one part. There's a couple different stories that bounce around a lot. It feels like it's out of order and it kind of bounces around a whole bunch, but it makes sense as to why. There's this whole subplot with these kids. And I don't want to say too much about it. Like anyone who's watched the show is going to know exactly what kids I'm talking about. And why they're a big part of it. But their dialogue just seems really haphazard. Like they start on one topic and then like in 3 seconds they're on something entirely different. But my second watch through, I was just like, these are actually really funny because this is how kids would talk. Kids just like bounce around with all these different conversations. They start somewhere, they get somewhere else. It's like, how'd you get there? And that's just how kids talk. They actually cast like 11-year-olds in all the roles. So it's like this natural banter for these kids that just go off on tangents and without any real, purpose, I guess, for it. And it just kind of works. Like as an adult, it's hard to watch. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, wow, doesn't make a lot of sense. Why are these scenes kind of seem a little draggy? The second time I watched it, I was like, okay, this is kind of reminding me what it was like to be a kid and how it would just kind of bounce around and like, you have child ADD where you're just, all over the place with all your thoughts and ideas and just, like all these games you want to play. Like it takes you right back to being like a kid, like a young kid and all the imagination that comes with it. And so like, again, the second watch through was probably the best. If you can watch it with subtitles, do so. I always watch everything with subtitles because I find like someone may say something in a certain way or just so quietly that I miss it. So having subtitles on there kind of helps me fill in the blanks personally. And there's a lot of like things and gags that I missed the first time around that when I watched it with subtitles again, I was able to pick up on it more. But I loved the show. It was really enough for me to watch it twice. It was
nice.
It was excellent. Yeah.
That's really cool. I might actually have some stuff that I have to pick up for the studio in the next little while. So, I mean, I might look at taking advantage of Amazon Prime. And I think too, it's different for Canadians too, because stuff is more expensive on Amazon. Prime is great because it helps with shipping, which is more expensive to Canada. But then you also don't have the same selection of content on Prime. However, I also support and would like to support more people on Twitch. And as some people have been so kind to me as to use their Amazon Prime subscription via Twitch to support me, I could probably knock a couple of birds with one stone, support someone on Twitch, get Amazon Prime for the shipping, but then also do the streaming services as well. So
so it's like I'll have a huge whammy.
Yeah, so I'll have to check it out.
But even like even just like with the free trial though, like all Bethany got was the free trial, and she's watching it as many times as she can until the free trial is over.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my free trial is long over. Just because I'm usually
email address specifically.
Well, I guess I could do that too. I'm an early adopter when it comes to this kind of stuff, so I probably tried it right away. But that was probably also back when I was ordering a lot of art books, which are heavy and tend to benefit greatly from free shipping, because the book itself is usually $60 plus shipping and all that kind of stuff.
But like another $30.
Yeah, but then I switched to Kickstarter because I was supporting independent publishers, and then I switched to not allowed to buy more art books until I read the ones that I have. So that's currently where I am with ordering stuff online. So I don't really shop online unless it's practical. Because all of the frivolous stuff, it's like, no, I've not done or read or finished the thing that I bought last time. So I should not be buying more stuff because I don't need more stuff in my place. But no, Good Omens sounds good. And I like both of the actors involved. I like David Tennant quite a bit. So that'll be a fun watch if I can get in there and try either get the free trial or maybe switch over, because I'm having a lot of trouble with Netflix. I've not been finding the things that I want to watch on it. And the things that I would normally have good faith in, I am struggling. I've been trying to watch The Last Kingdom, and it's good. It's high production value, but it is slow. I get halfway through an episode and I'm up doing something else. Like it's just not gripping me. I tried for the second time to get through the second season of Jessica Jones because the third season just dropped. I can barely get through 20 minutes of an episode of that because it's just the same. It's the same constantly. She's always in the same mood. It's always the same kind of dialogue. Everybody is just grumpy the whole time. And I'm just like, it's not, for whatever reason, I don't know what formula they did not take from Daredevil, which I devoured when it came out. It just did not translate to Luke Cage and to Jessica Jones. And then everything else that's new on Netflix, like, hey, it's new and it's from Netflix and it's a zombie thing. And then, hey, it's new from Netflix and it's another zombie thing. And it goes on from there. Or it's a horror thing, or it's like, hey, it's sci-fi, but it's a sci-fi horror thriller. It's like, no, sci-fi adventure. Like,
are you talking about Mother?
I tried to watch that too.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. But
I bailed about probably near the end of the first act, and it's not bad. It's just like once another person got introduced, which is not, I guess, is not really a spoiler.
No, it's in the trailer.
Yeah, once the other person comes into the airlock, I just kind of rolled my eyes like, okay, great. So now it's going to be a story of mistrust, and it's going to be predictable. And any kind of originality that it had with a robot and a child being raised by the robot, which I was glued to the screen. And then they introduced a third person. I was like, nope, just all of a sudden got real boring. And I talked to my dad, who had watched it and finished it. And he had mentioned that he thought it was okay, but he really didn't like the ending. And I was like, well, what was wrong with it? And he goes, well, I don't want to spoil it. So he just said it was really weird. And I immediately said, like, that is a problem that I see with a lot of stuff on Netflix, is that I'll try to watch an original film and it's weird at the end for weird sake. It's just because they want to, or they can push the envelope, but they're so worried about whether or not they could, they don't stop to think whether or not they should,
Right.
And it's like the Titan. I think it was the Titan or the Titans. It was about genetically altered people going to a different planet.
Oh,
cool concept.
I didn't watch that.
Cool concept.
Yeah.
Crap ending. It went off the deep end about midway through Act 3, and you're just like, oh man. And then you just feel cheated. Like you feel like you just lost the last 2 hours of your life. It becomes a very simple plot with a very stupid or bizarre ending, and you're just like, nope, not at all. It really kind of pulled the rug out from underneath me. It kind of feels like what sci-fi was like back before it was cool, like because you'd have all these weird films in the 80s, and there'd be the people that loved them, but then trying to convince your non-sci-fi friends to watch them was a feat because they were so weird. And then like the Star Trek films happened and Star Trek Next Gen, and like those things became a little bit more grounded and a little bit more story became king as opposed to just being weird in sci-fi for the sake of being weird in sci-fi. And I'm also, I'm spoiled by some of the adventure, in Star Wars and things like that. But Star Wars doesn't get weird necessarily, right? Like it doesn't go really existential on you. It stays pretty true to form. And in some ways people complain about it being a little bit too safe and predictable, but it's like at the same time, when I go to a Star Wars film, I don't necessarily want to be pushed outside the box too much.
Like I know exactly what I'm expecting with it.
Yeah, like a really good example is Annihilation. Did you see that?
No.
Alistair and I went to go see it in the theater together, and both of us were just kind of silent on the way home, kind of like processing, like I think I liked it. It's like I can't find any fault with it, but I can't really tell you anything that I thought was really good either. It was just weird. The whole thing was just really strange. But it was dealing with the kind of sci-fi that just you don't see in pop culture sci-fi. You don't see in the Marvel movies or Pixar or that kind of stuff. And so I'm starting to feel like my tastes in sci-fi might be a little bit more niche than just like, I like it all, like it's a little bit more focused on.
It's like mine, like with fantasy too. Like I started trying to watch this show on Netflix. It's a Korean drama, so I don't know if a lot of it is like being lost in translation because it's being translated from English, but it's called the Arthdal Chronicles. And it's like a Korean period piece. It's kind of like the beginning of time. It's in like this fantasy kind of realm, and you get two different clans, and you get one clan is blue blood and one is red blood, and if they have an offspring, their blood's purple, and it gives them weird powers. And they haven't really delved into too much, like with K dramas. Like they play the long game with K dramas. Like they're always long drawn out episodes. So right now it looks like there's gonna be 12 episodes in this season, and each one is about, I don't know, an hour, and they do move very slowly, but they like to play the long game with it. So on one hand, it's a really slow burn, which allows for a lot of very slow, contemplative human moments, but at the same time, it's like, is that boring to watch? And I got through the first episode, and I liked it. And I will probably watch more, but I may take my time watching it. Is kind of, it's not one of those shows that I feel like I could binge. Like, and then you get the flip side where you get shows that you binge at first, and then you're like, wow, something stupid just happened. Looking at you, the 100, and then it ruins the whole thing for you. Like, I'm just like, I can't. I don't want to continue with this. If this is how you're gonna go with it, then that's dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Man.
I can't even remember the last time I watched the 100. I watched the first 2 seasons, I think, and I quite enjoyed them. But then it started to get, like you said, some of the decisions that were made. I'm not sure if we're talking about the same one. You might be. Are you talking about like a current decision with the 100?
No, I'm talking about a decision that happened probably like in the second season.
Yeah, we might be talking about the same thing. I don't want to get into it in case people are unfamiliar or take us down a tangent, just because it is on Netflix and stuff like that. But
I feel like
and is it Arthdal Arthdal? Is that the
yeah
okay
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I found it, just so it looks interesting. Like it looks like high production value.
It is. It's very high production value. It's beautiful, and like what's interesting is that even like in the first episode, there's very, very clear like cultures, which is neat. Like it's like very clear cultures. Like there's one language. It kind of sounds a little bit like Klingon, if I'm being honest with you. But like there's one group that has one language. There's another group that has another language. They have translators from each clan that kind of like they're trying to negotiate like a sort of, alliance. Like one of them is really good at harvesting, cultivating, and one of them is on very, very fertile, abundant land. So they, the group that's really good at cultivating, which I guess on they look a little bit more quote unquote civilized because they're in cleaner clothes, and they look a bit more regal, whereas the group who's on more abundant land, like fertile land, they're more wild looking, like they kind of wear skulls as jewelry
Yeah, they look
and
more
things like
tribal.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the more, this one group is talking to, the group of fertile land, saying, hey, we can all, live peacefully and coexist if we can, make use of all the land together, and we can create a whole nation, like one nation under, this, have everyone have their own cultures and things and different gods, but live in a peaceful, prosperous land. And that was the idea. But this, tribal leader was basically like, nah, no thanks. We do our own thing. You grow things we don't even eat, so no, bye. And then the leader of this other group basically sends them a gift that's full of disease. What does that sound like?
Yeah.
Right.
No, there are no new ideas.
No, well, but like it's actually pointing those people as like bad guys, which is kind of nice on one hand. It's like they start out being the good guys and they're actually the bad guys, and it's kind of nice to kind of have that bit of history changed in favor of the people who are like being killed. It's like, no, hey, these people were like kind of peaceful for the most part, and people just came in and killed them, and it's like nice having that affirmation of it, I suppose. But I don't know, it's real slow. It's a real slow watch. I about halfway through I got a little bit bored and I had to take a break. Then I came back to it. But it is a slow watch, a slow burn. But having watched other K dramas that follow the same romance formula before, they're all like that.
Right.
You can take your time with them. If you take too long though, then you forget who everyone is.
Well, and that's probably some of the problems that I have with The Last Kingdom is that it's a cool fantasy show. It's about Britain before it was Britain, and it's about the Danes, and all establishing the first kingdom of New England, or not New England,
like
of
England.
No, it's long after that. It's
Oh, sorry, Alfred the Great.
Alfred. I guess Alfred the Great. I'm not sure if the Great is after his name, but.
Yeah. I think that's how he's known in history.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, now, I don't know, but Alfred is the first king. He's the self-proclaimed, or I can't remember exactly the details again because it's been so long since I've seen season 1.
Yeah.
And it's one of those shows that was like an A&E or an extended cable production, and then it got canceled, and then Netflix picked it up. So then like season 2 and 3 are Netflix original stuff, and the problem that I have mostly with it is that Uhtred, the main character, in some ways he's charming, and in other ways he's an idiot, and bad stuff happens to him because he's an idiot, and he doesn't learn from his mistakes. And
I'm chalking that up to him being like also in the show like 15.
Well,
he's supposed to be like a kid.
Yeah, and he's young, and it's also a very machismo kind of environment where like men are basically being pigs all the time, but the problem is that he doesn't seem to learn from any mistakes, and yet you're supposed to be feeling bad for him when he's like captured or tortured or whatever, and you're just like, no, you are here not because you have bad luck. You are here because you are stupid.
Because you ran your mouth and you got a little bit cocky.
Exactly, or you stabbed the wrong person because you couldn't hold your temper. It's like, oh, for the love of Pete. Like, so that kind of stuff is getting, it's getting a little bit old in that way. I do enjoy. Now, I can't say I'm familiar enough with history to know how true it is, but if it's even remotely true, it's kind of neat to kind of understand like what kingdoms were part of Northumbria and all that kind of stuff for a while, and how they switched allegiances, and how Danish culture was appropriated, and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is kind of neat. And as far as action goes as well, it's also really good. Like it's not a swashbuckling thing where like you've got a sword fight between the main, antagonist and protagonist that lasts 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. The battles are 3 minutes. Like it's just like slash, somebody dies. That's it. It's not overly drawn out, which is good.
Yeah, which is nice.
But for whatever reason, like the pacing on the 3rd season is just real slow, and Again, like, it just seems to be telling the same story over again. Like, you're just watching him make the same decisions, but with different people, different players. It's a little bit farther along in history, but it's not a different story. It's just the same thing. So it's a cool escape. And again, high production value. Like, you don't feel like you're watching a TV show. You feel like you're being sucked in, much like Game of Thrones. Like, you felt like you were part of that history when you were there. You don't feel like you're watching a television show. And I do like that about it. But for whatever reason, I just have not been interested in the slog recently. And because I mentioned at the top of the show that I've been trying to do more stuff outside, I also, in some of the Netflix and things that I've been watching, on days where it's not nice, I also wanted something that I could kind of maybe not always have to sit and watch, like I could maybe listen to or kind of have on in the background. So I've been watching some stand-up comedy. Not normally my bag. I just find it such a crapshoot, and I don't necessarily want to invest like an hour listening to somebody that I've never heard of, without knowing, whether or not it's going to be good. And part of that is just the Netflix, choice paralysis. Like, there's so many different things that you can choose from, and it's like, is it going to be good? Who knows? Or I watched a couple of, stand-up comedy, last year, and they were okay. It's like, well, I don't really, maybe it's not that they're bad. It's just that it's not my thing. But I had a friend recommend John Mulaney and say, like, hey, his latest thing is now on Netflix. You should check it out. And when I searched for him, I couldn't remember the name of the special, which is Kid Gorgeous, which is the latest one from Radio City Music Hall in 2018. But I just searched his name, and of course I found his other specials. I thought, well, screw it. I'll watch the first one, because with this kind of stuff, sometimes it's fun to kind of go back and see kind of like how their comedy develops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of research and found out that he used to write for Saturday Night Live. I said, okay, so the guy's probably pretty clever, pretty funny. And so I watched New in Town, which was, I believe, filmed in New York in 2012. Comeback Kid is filmed in Chicago in 2015. And then, of course, Kid Gorgeous is 2018. I want to say they're all about an hour. Like, they're all pretty short. They're not like big 90-minute epics. It's all a pretty straightforward set. Funny enough, I actually prefer the earlier specials. I didn't find them as funny in the Chicago one and the Kid Gorgeous. I actually think I would rank them 2012, 2015, 2018 as funniest to not as funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I feel like the 2018 might have been just like a little bit less content. Like, he was repeating himself a lot in the 2018 special.
Yeah, no, I've watched that one. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sort of a style thing and stuff like that. But I just found that so much of the content that he was talking about in 2012 was just kind of like, it felt new. Like it felt fresh. Now, on the same tone, in 2018, some of the things that he covers are things like, President Trump and, certain, I think he makes a couple jokes about the Catholic Church and, stuff like that. So there are things that have been being made fun of by comedians for like the last 2 or 3 years in the 2018 special. Whereas in 2012, he's just kind of talking about life. There's no real social or political event that has really kind of taken the media by storm. So he's just poking fun at everything. And I found that a little bit more clever. But overall, still an incredibly clever, jovial, edgy, but not in a gimmicky way.
Yeah.
Like, he'll say a line that stuck out was like, so I was in Connecticut doing white people stuff. And he just kind of moves on. He throws it out and then he just moves on. And it's just like, but it's just enough to make you go, did he just? Yeah, he did. And then he just kind of goes on to whatever. Like, he doesn't even stop for applause. And so that kind of thing I find is nice, because of course he's Irish Catholic from Chicago, I believe, and
his wife is Jewish.
My wife is Jewish and a very tiny person apparently, and with a big personality, and he's very forthcoming. Like, he's unafraid to be who he is, a 37-year-old man that looks like he's 12. Like, he puts it all out there, and I find it very well written. He'll drop something early on about, like, he dresses very well. I like that he has a nice presentation. He dresses in like a 3-piece suit when he's on stage, which I think is very classy.
He never used to. That's like a new thing he's done. It's like since I think
the 2012 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, was he wearing? He's probably wearing more casual clothes in 2012.
No. He was in the 3-piece suit is new, but he was definitely in a suit. Like he was definitely in a shirt and tie in all the ones that I've seen. But he was definitely in a fancier setup in 2018. But I think it's classy. Like it just it makes him feel it makes the edgier stuff that he does feel even more edgy because he looks really clean cut. Like you don't expect him to drop an F-bomb. Like you don't expect him to swear, but then he does. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But I know he also uses them in like a very like timed way. Too.
Oh yeah.
Like he's not dropping them left, right, and center.
No, there might be 2 or 3 in the whole special.
Yeah. So they're very, very impactful.
Yeah, exactly. And I really enjoy that kind of aspect to it. But he'll make a joke, something about like, this is what I wore to my first communion. And he's like, because he's joking about the fact that he looks like he's still 12. But then he'll bring that up or he'll make a sideways reference to it 40 minutes later. So it matters. It matters that first joke about the suit is there because he makes that reference again in context. At the end of the act, he has this really nice way of like tying everything together. And that happens a lot. Like it's not just beginning and end. It's like there's something he'll mention in the middle and it'll be brought up again, end middle or something like that. And it just, so you really have to pay attention. You can't just not listen. Like you really have to listen to the stories that he tells. He's a good storyteller too, which I find really engaging. He'll get into detail that really doesn't matter, but it paints the picture. Right? Like you don't need to know the wardrobe, time of day, and like sandwich that this person was eating. But in the same way, it does kind of paint you the stereotype of the kind of like New Yorker that he's talking about, that this person that he just ran into on the street that he's, conveying this anecdote about. And I did find him very, very, very funny. And not in a laugh out loud sort of way, but just in like, I found myself watching and smiling the whole time. Because he's just so tickled by everything that he's telling you.
Yes.
And it's not like there's one liner that busts you up. It's just that he is just so like, he's part laughing and part in disbelief of the story that he's about to tell you.
Yeah, but he's just so earnest about everything too, which is nice.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite ones, I don't know if Netflix, but I remember seeing a clip of him and he's talking about the real estate agent. When he and his wife are looking at a house. And he's like, she has like some, fun mom energy. And she wanted us to have a baby more than anyone else. And she's like, no, this place could be converted into an office or a nursery. Mm-hmm. Like everything. This is a good backyard. For some kids, like she just like the way he delivered stuff was really great. And it was stuff that like, it wasn't laugh out loud stuff, but it's always very, it's giggly stuff. Like it's something you're kind of just like, it's kind of.
And he has a very odd delivery, like a very odd cadence to how he speaks. He speaks like a really articulate kid, right?
Yeah.
Because like he enunciates everything. He pronounces every word clearly. Like he doesn't slur or like, for example, regionally, I say a lot of times I'll catch myself saying fur, F-E-R, when I'm saying the word for. Like I'm using this for something and I'll say this is for this, right? And it's a fur.
I'll drop a lot of G's instead of something. I'll say something.
Yeah, exactly. But he does not do that. It's like listening to someone read an audiobook when he's speaking. Like he enunciates everything, and it's very funny. I had actually heard a bit of his. It wasn't until I watched the 2018 special when I realized, oh, I have seen this guy before. But it would be like, a 3-minute or a 6-minute clip from like the Tonight Show or the Letterman, whether or not it was Letterman or Colbert, I don't know. But it was one of those situations where he had done this small bit of his larger act on television before. Mm-hmm. And he's making fun of Trump. But what I like so much about it is that he doesn't, if he mentions Trump's name, he mentions it but once. And then he is forever referring to the situation as a horse loose in a hospital.
It's my favorite.
And it's so good. It is so funny. And he just keeps on repeating, because it's a horse, in a hospital. And the more he says it, the more ridiculous it sounds. And the more you can imagine this horse like galloping around in a hospital and what kind of mayhem that would, cause. Right. And
my favorite, I had fired the horse catcher. I didn't know he could do that.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that. Like,
exactly. Like there's all this kind of stuff, but he never, it's so good because he talks about it in a way that everybody knows what he's talking about. They know how ridiculous it is, but he is making fun of the country and he is making fun of Trump as the president, but he's being careful not to bash the office of the president, like separate from the person. He's not bashing the government in that it is what it is. He's talking about how ridiculous this situation is. How the hell did we get here? And holy crap, what's going to happen next? But he's doing it in a way that is not the same as every other comedian that I've seen that just gets up there and goes, holy shit, Trump. And then everybody laughs, right? This guy at least is creating, is it a metaphor, analogy? I think it's analogy. Where he's just this horse in a hospital, and it is hilarious. Now, unfortunately, I had heard it before, so it wasn't quite as funny the second time there. But if you've not seen it, and you watch the Kid Gorge special, and you go in and you hear this bit, like it is really worth paying attention to the subtleties because it's very, very well written. I quite enjoyed it.
I think that's my very first introduction with him.
More than likely,
someone had taken that clip, put it up on a video on YouTube. And everyone's like, I love everything about this, just the way he moves, the way he was like flinging around the microphone cable. He's like, I don't really like politics. I really talked about him very much. And it was like, okay, like I think a lot of people can relate to that, like not liking politics or not wanting to talk about them very much. But then when he launches into the whole like horse in a hospital spiel, I was like, what is this? Like, what is he getting on about? But then like, he never mentioned Trump's name the whole time.
Yeah.
But like, as you're listening, you're just like, yeah, I know exactly who he's talking about without him actually really read between the lines with everything he's saying.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I like his delivery a lot. I think he's one of my favorite comedians because he's very subtle. He's not a laugh out loud comedian by any means. Like I've never like laughed out loud with anything that he's really said, but I've always like kind of just chuckled and that kind of like, chuckling kind of sound that you do. But he's very engaging. Like I find every time I watch him, I can't stop watching.
Yes.
Personally.
Yeah. And he does that thing where he leads the horse to water, but you have to take the drink. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, so he'll paint the story and he'll say, and then this happened. And then he just waits because that plus how the story started equals what's funny, but he doesn't tell you. Like he leads you right up to the end. It's like, and this is where my friend did this, and everybody goes, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
because there's something about that friend that matters. Like something that he told you earlier that makes it really important. I think he was talking about a story about a home where there was a teenage party and stuff had been stolen and destroyed, and it wasn't until 10 or 15 years later that he found out like what and who had done it and why it mattered. And it was hilarious. But it's the kind of thing where he starts the story at the beginning of the act or the middle of the act and doesn't finish it until another separate anecdote later. And you have to put the pieces together. And his comedy stand-up is like watching a season, right? Like you've got different little episodes throughout, and it matters that you saw episode 3 because episode 9 is going to refer to it. And it's like I said, it's very well done. I'm not usually a stand-up guy, but it was fun. I really enjoyed kind of kicking back and watching something different because I don't necessarily enjoy a lot of modern comedy television shows. I find them a lot of awkward comedy is in them, and that's not my thing. I'm not saying they're bad. I know that people like them, but it's not my brand of humor. Whereas this,
like cringe comedy or something.
Yeah. But this is the kind of thing where I really enjoy.
He's dry.
He's close. Yeah, he's close to British humor. Like he's very American. He's not at all British. Nothing about his style is British, but the
delivery is just very British.
It's dry, and I guess that's the through line. Yeah, the subtlety and the dryness of it is the kind of the comparison to a lot of British humor. So, but yeah, I quite like it. Well, that's going to bring us into the Internet Minute, and it is, of course, brought to you by you. If you are a supporter of the Citadel Cafe, then I, thank you immensely, because you're one of the reasons that I can keep on doing this show. If you head over to patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe, you can find out how you can become a patron. You can participate in our Discord. You get bonus episodes. We're going to have to record some more of those. We haven't done any in a little while, but when they do come out, you get them as part of the benefits of being a patron. And we are up one patron from last month, so I very much appreciate it. Yeah, so we're pushing on forward. Obviously, I'm always looking to bring that up. I think we're at 19 right now, but 20 in July would be good, because we're coming up on a new month. It's now the 26th of June, so having a new person in there is always a good thing. It contributes to the conversation. And there's lots of really cool stuff that happens during the week that is sometimes not related to the show. Like, we talk about Lego a lot in the Discord. There's a lot of food talk. There's a lot of recipes and stuff being shared. It's pretty fun. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is, on my other show, The Spawn Chunks, we do what's called a quarterly hangout, because we've unlocked that through Patreon support. It's just one of the benefits that we do, where we sit down and we talk to the patrons about what the show is and how it's doing and what our plans are for the future. I don't really have that with the Citadel Cafe because it's a pretty small community, but I thought every once in a while I would take this part of the Internet Minute and kind of like post some questions out there to the listeners, but also to the patrons specifically, because, I mean, hey, you're the ones that are financially supporting the show. Are you in the Discord chat? Do you enjoy the Discord chat? Are there things about the Discord or other benefits that you'd like to see on Patreon? Let me know. Email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com and say, hey, Joel, I'd really like you to talk about this in a bonus episode, or I'd like to see this room in the Discord, or I'd like to have, this kind of thing happen more often. Because it helps me make the perks on the Patreon more attractive to potential people that want to back the show. Now, to be clear, Patreon is meant to be a venue for those that want to support the show to do so. The perks are more extra. It's not like the perks are supposed to have the dollar value attached to them. It's more about, I want to support the show for $1, and hey, cool, I get access to the Discord too. It's less about a paywall and more about like, well, if you'd like to support the show, great. If not, it's no big deal. There are lots of ways to support the show without financial involvement. You can just tell friends about it. We've been talking on the Spawn Chunks a lot about spreading the word and getting our patrons to kind of share it with friends. And I was at a podcasting conference actually not too long ago, and still, with all the social media and all the digital means that are available to us, recommending podcasts to friends, personal recommendation, is still the number one way that podcasts are shared and engaged with. So if you like the Citadel Cafe and you have friends that might enjoy it, then as I say on the Spawn Chunks, poke them in the arm and say, hey, this is cool. You should listen to it too. Because the more people that listen to the show, the higher percentage eventually we might get more people coming on board in the Patreon, which means I can do more with the show. Like I can put more time into it and we can get more out of it. So again, thank you to all the people on Patreon that are supporting us. It's patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. I really much appreciate it. And I really like engaging and chatting with everybody in the Discord. So check it out if you have time. And if you have any questions, just drop me a line either on Twitter, at Joel Duggan, or like I said, email the show at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to fill you in. Now, I do have an internet pick. This is not just an empty plug. It's been a little while, and I've gotten out of the habit of picking some cool stuff to share on the internet here. However, this is really cool. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I believe it's Lee ZK. I think that's how you pronounce it. I could be wrong.
ZK.
ZK? Okay. So I'm glad I have you on the show. This is almost specific. This is almost specific because you're on the show. But she's a Chinese artist and food expert. Okay. I know next to nothing about her because everything from her videos to her blog posts to everything is all Chinese. So I don't read.
There's no subtitles?
No, I don't read or speak Chinese at all. So I only have the pantomime of the video to go on. But she does these very cool, very well edited and very calm videos about traditional Chinese cooking. It usually starts off with her going out into a garden or a farm or the forest or something and collecting the thing that she's going to use for food. And then she will...
Really high production value?
Extraordinarily high production value.
Lizzie Chi. I've seen her. So it's actually called, is it Lizzie Chi?
Is it? Okay. It's Zikii. I used Google Translate to give me a translation, so I don't know how accurate it is.
Liziqi. Lizzie Chi.
Okay. Yeah. It's Ki is what Google told me, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I think I'm actually just clicking on the link right now just to double check.
Just to double check. Yeah, please do.
I've watched some of her stuff. I think her latest video, she makes like a wool cloak like entirely from scratch from like, yeah, I've watched her before, from like shearing the sheep to like,
yeah, it's crazy,
dyeing the wool herself. She's insane. She's beautiful.
Oh yeah, and everything's very calm. There's usually some music in the background, but I find it a little bit. It's hard because like I'm looking at the food that she's making. I'm just like, that looks really good, but I kind of don't know what it is because she'll put the subtitles up, but they're in Chinese, so it's like I don't know what that says. Like, is that jam? Is it preserve? Is it something? I don't know.
I think people have gone in and tried to start translating anything that she's speaking or any text that's there.
Maybe
you turn on the closed captions on some of the videos.
I never thought about turning on closed captions. That'd be a good idea too. But
yeah, I know a lot of people will contribute. Like even like if they speak Chinese and maybe they also speak English, they'll just translate.
Mm-hmm. But they're still just lovely little kind of breaks from your usual social media kind of memes and fluff that go around. They feel meaningful. Like they're very well produced. They're an artistic presentation about traditional food and cooking, and I really enjoy the pace that they have. And they take a long time to make too, because in some cases, like she's leaving like peaches in sugar and spice out over seasons to ferment. So like the video can't be completed until like the winter is over. So they start in the fall with filming some content, and then they can't finish it until later.
Yeah.
Unless they're faking it, which I doubt they are.
I doubt.
Yeah, but it's she's also, I believe, I want to say, I'm assuming that it's her grandmother that she's either living with or cooking with or doing something with, and she's the cutest old lady ever. It's like she kind of shuffles around, and she's always just kind of like over her shoulder and like, oh, those ingredients look good. I'm gonna have some. And she just kind of like grabs a peach or a berry and then walks away. And it's just like it's very, very endearing, and it feels like, despite not speaking the language, that I'm still learning something about the culture.
Yes.
While I'm watching it.
It's beautiful. It shows it has like a little lamb. There's like bees that kind of hang around all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's just animals everywhere, and like there's no, I don't know. It's like everything is like a nice little story in each of her videos, and none of them are very. I think her longest one that I'm looking at right now is maybe 11 minutes.
Yeah, they're pretty short.
Maybe they're pretty short, but like they're beautiful and they're very calming. And I think the first one I found was like how to make a cloak, like how to make a cloak out of wool, and it's literally like, I was amazed with it because she like shears the sheep herself, and then she spins the wool, and then she dyes the wool, and then she knits the cloak like all herself from scratch, like literally from scratch, and it is mind-blowing to my brain. Like I was just like, what do you mean? This is insane. And it's like her dyes are all made of like fruit and like plants and everything. It's all natural stuff, and it's like taking it back to like when you would do everything from scratch, like from like when you had no factory made anything, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. Nice. And like I said, a nice change of pace. So if you're looking for something different, I can't really spell out the URLs because they're all gobbledygook, unfortunately. But I'll have the links, and I'll probably embed one of her YouTube videos onto the show note page at thecidadelcafe.com. That is incidentally where you can go to find out all kinds of things about what Megan and I have talked about today. You can check out other episodes of the Citadel Cafe. The music, of course, was composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can email us, like I mentioned, at thecidadelcafe@gmail.com, or find us by name on Twitter and Facebook. We are available on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, and Spotify, and maybe YouTube if I can get off my butt and get Megan to help me out with that. We've talked about that before.
And I need to put up more of my stuff too.
But that's going to be it. You can find me and everything that I do at joelduggan.com. That includes my illustration and design portfolio. You can check out my other podcast about Minecraft at thespawnchunks.com. And it's just my name, Joel Duggan, on all social media. I am very, very easy to find. I'm going to point you towards Twitch, where I've been doing a lot of art and streaming some new designs for Pixel Riffs there. So check that out too. Megan, where can people find you online?
People can find me online on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Megan Townsend. I'm posting a lot more YouTube videos from my China series, which will be ending very soon. And there's some more of my face on Instagram if you want to see that.
You have been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.